Hello, I'm Chris Flisher, and welcome to Turning of the Wheel, an intelligent, lively discussion about astrology, art, and spiritual adventure. Timing is everything, and as the great wheel turns, we are best prepared when we are best informed. Join me as I explore concepts that allow us to broaden our view of the world. You'll hear interesting topics, meet fascinating guests, and discover who you really are. Using the time-tested practices of astrology, you'll learn how to accept change as the great wheel of life turns. Astrology, art, and spiritual adventure on Turning of the Wheel TV with Chris Flisher. Hey, welcome to Turning of the Wheel. This is a show about astrology, art, and spiritual adventure, as you well know. And spiritual adventure is a nice umbrella I use. It allows me to bring in a lot of extra topics and interesting people who may not be astrologically linked, but still have relevance, because I think all of the different modalities are all connected in some capacity. So it's important to do that. Today, my guest is Katherine Glass, and she is a psychic. And so we're going to ask her some questions about what that's all about and try to get a little bit of idea of how it is, how you can become a psychic, or how you know you are one. How did you know you were one, and how did you sort of come to this conclusion in your life?
Honestly?
Yeah.
My mother told me so.
Your mother said you're going to be a psychic.
No, she said you are psychic,
you
literally.
Are psychic. Yeah.
Yeah, when I was about I was old enough to understand. She noticed it, she said, when I was about 3 years old. But it was later in my early childhood, she'd say, "Oh, you're psychic." She would read to me the Laura Ingalls Wilder books. You know, there was a series.
Yeah, I remember, yeah.
And I would always tell her what's going to happen exactly, almost word for word on the next page.
Right.
And I had a sharp mind. Maybe I was just supposing, but that was one of the incidents I remember where she'd say, "Oh, you're psychic." But it didn't surprise her because she came from a family that was interested in that, and also her mother was a medium and a psychic. I found out later.
Yeah, and you know, there's different, varying degrees of what psychic ability takes. I think it's one thing to be able to say, you know, you can have a lot of us have coincidences where we see things, or we think of something and all of a sudden it happens, or we have a lot of incidences like that. But to be a true psychic, you've got to be able to get to the root of something that only the person who you're reading would know, and only they would know, in other words. So you're not picking up on body language, you're not picking up, because a lot of times you do readings over the phone, right?
Right, exactly.
So you have no idea what you're talking to then.
Right.
And so you have to be able to pull something. It has to be something meaning. You can't just say, you know, I remember years ago I went to see a psychic, and the guy said to me, "Well, you want to make a lot of money, you want to go on vacation." I said, "Well, no kidding. Who doesn't want to make a lot of money and go on vacation?"
A little vague.
They were too vague.
A little general,
right.
yeah.
So it's the specificity, that's a big word, the specificity that makes it all accurate, and that's where the real drilling into the particulars of the person makes it. So how do you do that? Is it just pop into your head?
Yes. It's really a talent, a gift, and a way of being. I believe, honestly, Chris, I believe everybody has psychic equipment, psychic anatomy.
Right,
I think all
so
humans
too.
can be psychic, like everything has instinct that lives.
Right.
But I took it all the way and ran with it because it's definitely, I believe it's my purpose in life, or my dharma,
Your
meant
calling,
to be,
yeah,
my
yeah.
calling. And I could take piano lessons, but I don't feel the desire, nor do I believe I have the drive or the talent to become a concert pianist. People can take psychic development classes and intuitive development classes. I teach them often. And they learn a lot to apply to their own lives, but they don't necessarily hang a shingle out and start giving readings professionally.
I see.
So it's a valuable thing to pay attention to in your human anatomy, the anatomy of what I call the spirit. But yes, I believe I'm a soul reader. I've always had that ability, that gift. Some people would say, "Oh, you're just good with people," or intuitive, but from a very young age, I was always counseling my friends. I sort of had a sixth sense or a precognitive knowing of what they needed when, and what to say when, and how to sort of dissolve a tension that might be rising, for example, or, you know,
But that's stuff that you could pick up by being in
atmosphere.
person. You don't have to be in person to pick up that stuff, right?
Right.
I mean, as a true psychic, you should be able to just channel in.
Oh, yeah, and you just said the word channel. That's the thing. As you develop and you really go to do specific readings for a specific person, that's when you start to understand how it works. Because I hear things, I'll hear words in my head, I'll see images, and I don't really always know what they mean, but I just put them out there, you know?
And are they usually in connection with a person? In other words, you can have psychic abilities on a global scale, or is this on a very personal scale? I mean,
I don't do the global world event. And you know, that's the cool question. All psychics have different strengths and gifts. Like some psychics are very medically oriented. They're really good at reading in the body and diagnosing. Or some people are crime oriented psychics.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
That's something I don't go to because it kind of freaks me out. I don't want to look at, dismembered bodies and where they're hidden.
I don't blame you.
So because the energies, but some people are super good at it and really want to help the world in that
Right.
way, and they do tremendous work. So kudos to them.
Right.
So yes, everyone has a different sort of gift or propensity with it, like an athlete. Some athletes are excellent at basketball, some are excellent at baseball, some are great skiers. It's like that.
Right, so you have a sort of a narrow range, and yours is far more personal oriented. So someone would come to you with a specific set of questions, or would they just come and say, hey, what am I doing? Or
Both happens, and I guide them and tell them the more specific you can be with what you want to look at least the area of your life. When someone signs up for a reading with me, my assistant has them, kind of screens them, think of 3 areas you'd like guidance in: career, love,
money,
life direction.
whatever, yeah.
What is it? But some people do come in and say, I just want a message, like I want to know what Spirit has to say to me. And by Spirit, I mean, what I believe are the guides that work with me that help give me information.
So you think that there's an overarching sort of hierarchy of order here? I
kind of do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe we all have Spirit guide that helps us through life.
No, I think that makes perfect sense. I have no problem with that. I just was wondering if it was sort of how you do it. Now, as a psychic, I'm sure people sometimes roll their eyes when they talk to you because they say, a psychic, okay, what is she going to do? Give me a stock pick, or what day should I buy a lottery ticket?
I've done that. Not for myself, but for others. I've done readings.
Give me a lottery
for stock
what day is a
brokers.
good day to buy a lottery ticket, or whatever.
Yeah.
How do you sort of combat the whole stigma that's attached to that? How do you push up back against that? I mean, I guess the best
I have a sentence that I say. What I tell people is, skeptical is healthy. I think it's wise to be a skeptic. You can get scammed and taken in this world in any profession.
Mm-hmm.
Cynicism is harder to work with because if you're a cynic and you show up at my office like this and you say, prove it, that immediately starts to shut down the energy exchange that happens between two people during a psychic reading.
So you
You're
have to
made
be
of
open.
energy, I'm
Yeah.
made of energy, and it's all energy happening. The more relaxed and connected I can get, the better your reading's going to be. If I'm on guard and defended and my human ego gets in the way, my conscious mind, which interferes with my psychic reading, then you're not going to have a good reading.
I think it's a really good distinction. Skepticism, I think skepticism is always healthy. I say the same thing when it comes to astrology. If people don't believe it, then just, give me your chart and I'll tell you what's going on, and I can see that or whatever, and then they usually are convinced after you do that.
Yeah.
But cynicism is right. Someone comes in with a preconceived notion of what a psychic is, you're gonna push back. I think they're not trying to saying prove it.
Yeah.
It's the same thing I think that happens in that regard. When it comes to so how do you? So people.
If they wanted to test me, sorry to interrupt you.
No.
I would just sense that vibe with them, and I would very politely say, I don't think I'm the reader for you. I'm not your reader. I don't get defensive. I don't say, don't put me on the spot like that. That's not what I do. I just say, I think I'm not the right reader for you, but I can recommend some people. But my friends would probably get mad if I sent someone like that to them.
No, I can imagine. I think it's a difficult. Do you find that people are more open to it in current times than they have been in the past?
Definitely. Oh my gosh.
Really?
Chris, I have so many people calling me up for readings now that are having experiences themselves that they, like seemingly out of the blue, that they don't understand. And not only psychic experiences, but mediumistic experiences where they're actually getting spirits from the other side talking to them or showing themselves to them, and it's freaking them out. Mm-hmm. I think that the veil's getting thinner on the planet.
Getting thinner, yeah. Now, when you say mediumship, why don't you explain that a little bit to us?
Okay. The simple explanation is that psychic reading is about the person in front of you or the event in the world that the psychic is tuning into. You sitting in front of me, your life, your people in your life, relationships, job stuff, whatever. And a mediumship reading is about the medium, the instrument, the conduit.
The antenna.
The antenna, exactly. The antenna opening to the spirits that would know or have known or loved you, because you're the subject in the sitting, who want to come forward and connect with you.
So these are people who
people who've crossed over.
People
and
have crossed
animals
over.
too.
Have crossed over, and they are actively conversing.
Yes, and also angels and the spirit world, spirit guides.
Okay.
Not necessarily just humans who have passed.
Okay, but this is their, and do people, how would you start that conversation? You're not in charge of starting that conversation.
Right. I open. Here's the best way to explain it. When you're sitting in a room somewhere in your house, and in another room there's the radio's on, and there's a song playing, and you can kind of, You know there's a song, but you're not paying attention to what it is, but when you shift your focus and you listen, oh, that's Sting, he's singing Roxanne from the Police or something, and you can hear the words, it's just like that. The stream of consciousness on that level, on that plane, is always happening. It's always around us. They're here all the time. And you just shift the focus and listen and feel, sense, see, know, hear. They're called the clairs: clairaudient, clairsentient, claircognizant, so clairvoyant, seeing. And that's the first training on a mediumship level too. And so you learn how you receive your information, and you just open. And I get words and images. I get a lot of names. That's one way that Spirit makes a link with me, and then the link builds and gets stronger.
Huh. So once you get that conversation going, then it comes pretty smoothly.
Yes.
Now,
usually, if you're lucky. And the Spirit too has to be a good communicator.
Right.
It's a three-way energy exchange. The person you're reading for has to. On some level, it can be a difficult reading if the person is very, like I said, uptight or cynical or frightened. It can obstruct the energy flow. Then the confidence of the medium can go down, and then the conscious mind gets in the way, and the messages from Spirit can get garbled or misinterpreted, and I have to keep going back and reestablishing. But as you become experienced as a medium, less of that ego-based fear stuff goes away, and you just surrender. You're the antenna, the extension cord, and you give whatever you get.
So you're like a conduit. You're the receiver. You're bringing all the information in.
Yes.
Do you find that this can be overwhelming for you
yes.
at times?
It's exhausting sometimes.
I would
for
think
me.
it would be very exhausting, because
I feel like a deflated balloon afterwards sometimes.
I imagine. Yeah, you must take a lot out of you. I mean, it does for me, even as an astrologer. When I do a reading, I feel it's a lot of work, and you're in this churn, and you're just pulling information. And I suppose there's similar skill sets in there. I'm just using more of a roadmap, I guess.
But you're intuitive, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it can be draining. You have to take care of yourself and regulate yourself. You can't do this full time.
Right.
You can't. You burn out.
You would burn out. I think that'd be very true. Because I would think
spiritual
that
gymnastics.
You can't. Right. You have to get spiritual disability. So when you have all that chatter, I mean, that's what I would consider. And do you find yourself, like, supposing you walk into a public place?
Mm-hmm.
What do you must be hearing things?
No.
You
not
just
at
shut
all.
it off?
I don't hear a sound. I don't even hear anything around you right now because. Well, first of all, I'm fortunate. A lot of my colleagues tell the stories of how I can't go into public. It makes me crazy. I think that's where training comes in. I've been trained for a lot of years, and when I sit down to work, I turn it on, and when I'm done with work, it's done. It doesn't mean I don't have access all the time, but I'm not tuning in there, so I'm not aware of it consciously.
So have you used this sort of, this gift that you have, which I think it definitely is, it's a fascinating gift. Do you use this gift in your own personal life to sort of see where you're going? Can you do it on yourself, or is
No, not so well, because I'm human and I have emotions and fears, and my ego mind gets in the way, and doubts and insecurities like all humans do.
Right.
That's why what's so cool to me and beautiful about this work is that when I sit down to work to meet the need of a scheduled appointment with a client, boom, I'm in the zone. And
and you just turn it off and on.
It marvels me. I'm amazed at, like, how do I do this?
Yeah,
you
and
know?
you really
and it
don't
feels
know,
so
do you?
effortless on some level. It's tiring on one level if it's a lot in a day, but it's also, it's just what I do easily.
I would think that as a medium, dealing with people who've crossed over, you're entering into a very emotional realm. And so
emotional for the sitter.
For the sitter. But I also would think that you'd have to be dragged into that too, because there would be messages that would be coming from the other side that would be somewhat, emotional and sort of heavy stuff, right? I mean, you're not going to be talking about,
it's just like being a counselor, really, or a therapist. If there was abuse in the family and the spirit's coming forward to apologize for that abuse, and your client is crying because they really needed to hear that and they never did when they were alive, it's very beautiful. It's moving. It's an honor and a privilege to be the facilitator of that.
Right, because you're liberating them in some way. You're
so on that level, there's a healing going on.
Yeah.
But I also, maybe because of training, the medium has to learn to not involve their own emotions with the reading, because I'm there in service to spirit, to communicate, and also in service to the sitter.
Right.
It's a lot about healing grief too.
No, I know. That's what I was thinking, because you're entering into such. I mean, most people are not going to come to you to have a pleasant conversation. I would think they want to know an answer. They want to make it. They want to apologize themselves, perhaps to somebody who's gone on. All kinds of exchanges would happen in that regard. But I would think it'd be a fairly emotionally rich area to be in.
It is very. Very much so.
kind of, you got to be very careful about how you walk through that area, I would think.
You do, and that's one of the skills that I naturally have with my nature and personality, I guess. And I've had, like I keep saying, I've had quite a bit of training in lots of healing work.
Let's talk about training. How would you train for something like this? I mean,
well, first of all, life trains us all and prepares us for our dharma.
Yeah.
All my family is on the other side. I lost my sister when I was 6. I lost my brother. He died young. I was an adult, but he passed at 54. Then I lost my mother 3 months after that. I lost my father a year after that. I've had a lot of loss. All through my life. Friends have passed. My best friend in high school passed at 16. So I've been I'm no stranger to death and loss. And I always joke and say that's why God made me a medium, you know, because so I could cope and talk to them. But that gives me, number one, compassion right off the bat, an understanding of what loss feels like.
Empathy.
Empathy. The big one I haven't experienced, and please God, I hope I never do, is the loss of a child. And that's very painful and hard to go through as a medium. And we do it often, and that's part of the reason it's tired.
I think that would probably be one of the more demanding ones that you have to deal with.
Yeah.
Because it's such a raw area, and you know, there's such unjust areas too. You think about it from the standpoint of losing a child. I think it's probably the hardest thing to go through for anybody to go through.
Yes, but that's part of the sense that a medium helps make for the parents. You help to bring
comfort,
some comfort, explanation, or something, some kind of closure or way to live with it.
Right. So do you, and as a result, and do people, when they come to you, they find themselves in a state of awe when they're done, like, oh my God, do you?
Sometimes.
Yes. It is about the specificity, you know, that's what I'm saying. It comes down to, you know, there's no way you would know someone's name or what they did for work, especially if they passed, and you've come up with that information, you can tell what that information is.
Yes, and every medium is different. Some mediums are really good at, you know, cause of death, or it's all evidential is what you're looking for, but there's a beautiful blending of evidential information that only the person would know about their loved one, and also blending that with the personality, so that they say a good medium, you know, will give you great evidence, but a great medium will bring mom through. And you'll feel mom's here. It's mom. It's not, I have your mother here. Right. It's mom. Okay. There's a difference.
Yeah, because you'd have to pick up on the nuance. Yes. The energy would have to be far more, I think, more direct and more recognizable. You'd have to be more recognizable, because someone like that, only the child would know specifics of their mother or father or whatever, and so they would have to know, is this accurate? And you'd know that. Yep.
And the difficult thing there are different ways of doing mediumship. One is a one-on-one sitting, and one is a private family reading for a group of relatives. One is a small reading for non-related people, so you'll get lots of different spirits from different families, which then gets more complicated because you have to sort who's who. And then there are the big gallery readings, where you read anywhere from 50 to 2,500 people in a big venue, and you're doing quick messages for people. It's not an in-depth reading, as in-depth.
I would think that'd be very challenging.
It's very challenging, but it's also
and exhausting.
It is exhausting, but it's also fascinating. I actually love gallery work. It's because the messages are quick and distinct, and then boom, you move on. But the thing for a medium to work on in that is how to sort the spirits, because they do crisscross over. And sometimes one message that's coming through that makes sense to one person makes sense to 3 other people. You have to refine it until it's clear who's communicating. But we always tell the audience, take it for yourself as well. If you're convinced that that's your mom, because we're dealing with the world of spirit here, Chris. There's no bodies and time and space to deal with, so the thought could be coming to that person. I know I sound like I'm getting out there, and it may be a lot for people to grasp.
These are the questions we have to ask. So, I mean, when you think about when you talk about crossing over, somebody passing over into the other side, that implies, does that open up the whole realm of history to you?
Of the person's life?
Or anybody who's out there. I mean, does it open? Could you be talking to Abraham Lincoln? I mean.
You know, I think not so much. I mean, I think there are channels who can do that. For example, the Hollywood Medium, there's a television show, The Hollywood Medium. He's wonderful, a young guy. I think his name's Tyler or Taylor. And he reads for celebrity stars. So celebrity stars could have realistically known Michael Jackson. Okay. So he'll get Michael Jackson. I won't get Michael Jackson, because you probably don't know Michael Jackson personally. So why would Michael Jackson come around you? In general, you're going to get spirits that know your loved one, that make sense to your loved one. You know, I'm not sitting here trying to channel Elvis.
Right.
You know?
No. I understand. I just wouldn't be. I guess that'd be more along the lines of what you would do in the global sort
You could get ancestors.
History or something. Yeah, history. Yeah, but how far back? And you're going,
you can go way back, but then that becomes frustrating because the person can't validate it.
So what's your logic behind this? How do you rationalize this in your head? How do you come to the conclusion that people are on the other side, and how do how do you have that dialogue? You just take it on faith, or what do you do?
We're all connected.
Well, I know we're all connected.
We're all connected, and there's just a communication network up there that's feasible and possible.
So what do you think happens when someone passes away?
Oh, when they cross over?
Mm-hmm. Do you think that there's life after life? Is there sort of a...
Definitely life after life.
Do they
life
come back in
on.
another form?
I do believe in reincarnation. I think we wait generally about 100 years for the whole soul group to come up together and then regroup and rearrange who we're going to, what role we're going to play with each other to further our lessons on a spiritual level, our soul growth. And there are some great books I can recommend to read on that. Many Lives, Many Masters by Brian Weiss, and Journey of Souls by Michael Newton, Destiny of Souls. But you know, I think that the purpose of energy never dies. It only changes form. Consciousness cannot be destroyed.
So a person is considered to be an energetic spirit, force. Consciousness, yes, okay?
A soul.
They come in and they are unique in that place and time, in a place and time.
Right.
Just as the astrology chart says, this is a unique person, place and time. Yeah. That person, after they do their role on Earth, and then they cross over. Yeah. Pass over, and then they continue their work there. So they are always going to be that person. So to say that we are like a snowflake, each individual person, unique as we are, that is a fact of life.
It's true, but each lifetime we might have a bit of a different personality. I could have been male in a past life. So I may have some aspects of my essence that still come through. I may have been a fast-talking male.
Right, right.
But I probably didn't have the feminine aspects that I have in this life, or the sensitivities that I had in this life. I might have been a warrior or something, to experience a different set of circumstances to learn, but the soul itself, the essence or the light of that being, is, you know, there have been movies made about reincarnation where you recognize them through the eyes are the windows of the soul. Right. It's like that.
Well, so that's sort of what gets me thinking about the sort of the Hollywoodization, if that's a word, of psychics and how they come through. Because there has been a lot of pop culture that dwells around that, which I think gives rise to people's skepticism in some ways, or in some other cases, probably their belief too.
Religious beliefs.
You know, there's sort of a fanaticism about it. But I'm fascinated by the idea of that, you know, when we cross over, we leave something, and that person is unique to that point in time, as we would be, as any, like being on a river, you're on a river, you're only that person for that period of time, then you're on. But
we meet other souls that we've known in other lives, as well as the life we just had. When we cross over, you're greeted, you're not alone. And
I've always held the opinion that we sort of, if, and I do think we do come back, we learn that we have to continue the lessons that we didn't learn the last time. We're sort of in the same idea of like, okay, didn't get it right, you got to go back and do it again. That idea,
but you might get a break and work on something different, like a different category in a lifetime, and then go back, circle back to that other lesson in a lifetime after that, possibly. I think we have eternity to get it right.
Right.
So it feels
and do you think that, I mean, so in some ways people would come into the world with a sense of predestiny?
Somewhat, but then we have free will. This is what I love the most about the work that I do in the realm of metaphysics, philosophy, spirituality. The beautiful thing about the all that is, or creation, or the universe, whatever you want to call the divine, is the mystery. There is still the mystery. We don't actually really scientifically know for certain, for fact, until it happens to us. And I think that's mastery and brilliance.
We don't know what. We don't know what it's like.
We don't know what we've been told, some people like myself have channeled information, I've heard from spirits, I met my grandfather on the other side, there was so much light and love, I feel happy, I'm painting now over here, I never had time to paint. I've had spirits say things like that, like life continues in the spirit world, and we do activities in the spirit world that mirror Earth activities, if that's where our consciousness is interested in. Probably, if we want to, we can zoom through the planets and the stratospheres, because we're consciousness, we're spirit. We don't have a body limiting us.
We're not limited
but we don't know for sure, until it happens to us.
Right, so that's the great
really
unknown.
Cool.
That's the great unknown.
Yeah.
So you don't have any fear of this approaching?
Sure I do. I'm human.
Right.
We're born with an instinct to survive. This body wants to survive. This scientific organism wants to stay alive at all costs. Will I dodge a truck if it's coming? You bet. But in the big scheme of life, when I do feel a little homesick for spirit, I do feel like there's a part of my soul or my being that remembers being spirit. And I know that there's a beautiful, happy, peaceful place where I don't have strife that I have here on the planet, and I look forward to that rest.
And do you think that we meet up with people that we've met?
Absolutely.
You do think we meet up again?
Absolutely, without a doubt.
And so there's something to look forward to.
Yeah. Reunions.
Yeah, reunions.
Sure.
I mean, it's such a fascinating area. You can see why people are somewhat reluctant, or at least skeptical, because they're so grounded in the real world that they can't get out of that realm, and they don't necessarily want to.
That's why I'm here. That's my job. That's my calling, and many of us like me. We're here to plant the light, I call it, to wake up the sleeping people who forget who they really are. This is my belief system. I'm not trying to preach, but when we start to wake up and remember we are spirit soul, we're living in an earth suit, in a body, and we're eternal. And it helps you to forgive yourself for your flaws, not play the game quite so seriously, but also remember you have free will and free choice here, and it's a magnificent gift not to be taken for granted, but also don't overthink it so much that you freeze yourself.
Right, you could become paralyzed in that. Yeah, I could see that, and it is a question.
Fear and anxiety, it's rampant.
Yeah, and I think that's just the nature of human beings. I think that's just part of the nature of our psyche. We have this we're highly evolved people. We have this problem. We think too much. I mean, it's one of those things, and of course we get bombarded by it all the time as well. Do you think that people are more in need of this than they have been in recent times?
Absolutely.
Or is the demand is there, and you think that's because of people searching for answers? Do people sort of use this approach to supplant what normally would be like conventional religions, or
maybe, or a slower pace of life where people had more time to walk by the river and contemplate life, sort of between the era of caveman survival, you know, running from the tiger in the jungle, more development, more progress, and there was a period, I think, that things were slower, you know, maybe horses and buggies and things like that. There was a pace to life that was slower, but there's always been strife in humanity, whatever era we're in.
Of course, and it's probably all relative to the time that it is.
Exactly, and so the soul will experience the strife of the era that they're born into, but the lessons can be the same. You could have been an anxious person in, you know, 1726 and still be an anxious person in 2018.
That explains it.
Didn't get it right. But, you know, that's where the spiritual practices come in, and the sages and the scriptures and the meditation and yogic practices, or chanting, or, you know, Buddhistic meditation, prayer, whatever, that speaks to the soul.
There are some real universal truths in all this, because no matter which culture you're in, there's a variation of this theme. In some cases, there's always there. Whether it's whether it's in the whatever religion it is, has elements of that. Almost every one of them. So there is something that is innately part of being a human that makes us want to reach out for this and have this answered for us. What's the most startling thing that's ever happened to you in this regard, as far as, you know?
Oh, I have a great story. It's just so personal, but it was amazing. I mean, I've had a lot of validation. People come back to me and say, "Oh my God, you were right," blah blah blah. But for me personally, as a medium, I still get my mind blown when spirit contacts me directly. I was a very brief story. A year ago, New Year's Eve day, I had a big gallery to do in Worcester, actually. It was first night Worcester, and I was feeling tired. I'd had some back problems for the Christmas break, and I hadn't done any mediumship in a while, and I felt a little off my game. I was nervous, and I just felt emotional. And I was in my backyard, and I was kind of talking to my family in spirit, and I was saying, "Oh, you know, guys, please be there tonight, support me. I got to help my people do the work, blah blah." And I said, "Mom, could you just send me a bird? You know, send me a bird." And I left it at that. I was going to keep my eyes open for the next week, month, keep my eyes open for the sign from Mom, you know. And within about 5 seconds, a gaggle of geese flew over to my right. And then 10 seconds later, another gaggle of geese. And then behind me, an uprising of all the birds in the marshland behind me. And that was really cool. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Mom. You heard me, you heard me." And I thought that was my message. And then I got up and I decided to go in the house. And I walk into my kitchen, and there is a bird inside my kitchen, batting at the window, trying to get out of my kitchen.
That's amazing. That is truly amazing.
It flew into my house, and I don't know how, because I've never had screens open or whatever, but I kid you not, I'm not making this up. And I was
in
a little
January,
freaked out.
So it wouldn't have happened. You wouldn't have.
It was December 31st. It was one of those little brownie sparrows that we have a nest of them in my barn.
Unbelievable.
And anyway, so I figured out how to get the bird out, and I just wept. I was blown away.
It's amazing to have you on today. Interesting stuff. Great to have you on, Katherine. It's always fun
Chris.
to talk to you, and thanks for coming on. I really
Thanks so
appreciate
much.
it.
Had a great time.